There we go. And then also just gonna start. Great, so I'll share my starter screen. Hopefully everyone can see that. Okay, proper welcome then. Hello, my name's Hannah Brown. I'm the marketing manager here at the Grierson Trust. Thank you again for joining us and for registering and for all of your interest in Grierson DocLab. It's really great to have you here, and it's great to have alumni here who can tell you a lot more about the scheme and from their experience from the last few years. Just before we start properly, there are closed captions available. So if you select the CC button in the Zoom pane at the bottom of your screen, you should be able to see them. So other housekeeping bits. I think I mentioned this just before, but for anyone who's just joined us, if you could please turn your video off and mute yourself, and then we'll just make sure that it's sort of less busy for everyone and you can just see our lovely panelists. If you have any questions as we're going along, post them in the chat and we'll monitor those and we'll save them to the end, and we'll do some questions after everyone's sort of given an introduction. The next bit of housekeeping is that we will use a platform called menti.com. So that's a website that you can access in any browser. And we'll do a few quick polls with people who have joined us today on the webinar, just to sort of find out a little bit more about you, how you found out about us, whereabouts in the UK you are, etc. So if you go to menti.com and then use the code 31013500, it should take you to the first question that we'll launch soon. So the other things to say is just that this session's being recorded, so it will be published afterwards, and we are also hopefully live on YouTube as well. So I think that's it from me, and it's just left to sort of introduce my colleague Yen, who is the Director of Training Programmes. So over to you, Yen, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Hello, everybody. It's delighted to see so many people here able to join us this evening. Really appreciate it. So as Hannah said, my name's Yen Yao. I'm the Director of Training Programmes for the Grierson Trust. And if you're successful and get onto the scheme, I'm going to be your point person. And basically, I'm the one that's going to be supporting you through your journey on the scheme. I describe myself as a cross between your personal cheerleader and your nagging mother, basically, because I'm the person that's going to be helping you on your way into the industry. We're a very small team, so you've met Hannah. We've also got our admin assistant, Joseph, and our managing director, Jane Callahan, and that's basically the team. So we're a very tight, small team, but I like to think that we do punch above our weight, and all what we are about is supporting you getting your first steps into the industry. So for those of you who don't know much about the Grierson Trust, what we are is that we're primarily known for the awards that we present every single year, which is about celebrating the best of British documentaries in the calendar year. And then about 10 years ago, what we did was that we established an outreach program, which is about supporting new entrants age 18 to 25 who want to work in factual television and docs. And it was about supporting underrepresented voices and underrepresented groups in the industry. And the alumni that we've got here today in the screen, you're going to be hearing from them. They're going to talk about their experience of being on the DocLab, how it was about applying, and what they've gone on to do. So you get that flavour of, if you're successful, what it is that you'll be supported in, and that ongoing support from us as well. So recap quickly about, if you haven't read through the information about the scheme. So given pandemic and the way that we're moving forward, we're going through a hybrid model. So in May, we have our selection day, which is online, interviews in April. We have our actual residential, which is online actually, in May, and then we're going to be doing in-person 3-day in Birmingham as well. So I think it's very important, because what's the beauty of the scheme is that you become very tight as a cohort. So we want to bring you together. And I think Azeem and Toni are the ones that from going back now, the ones that have actually participated for a full week online, in person. And in the last 2 years, we actually went online, and this year we're going to be melding it, so it's hybrid. You then get to go to Sheffield Doc Fest. Everything is paid for, accommodation, your industry pass. providing it still be going ahead, because we don't know, obviously, the uncertain world of COVID, accommodation, travel, etc. is paid for. Everybody gets a placement. There are some provisos on that, but if you get selected, we'll discuss that. But primarily, everybody will, in theory, get a placement of either 2 or 4 weeks in length, supported by bursary, £500 per week, and the group, you can ask questions of the alumni, how they found it, what they did, etc. You get an industry mentor, and you get ongoing support, and you importantly get a ticket to the Grierson Awards in November, where you can network, meet industry, meet your peers, and it's a fantastic way of actually getting into people's little black books. So if you're successful, that in essence is what the Grierson DocLab is about. And as I said, it's it's about supporting new entrants aged 18 to 25. So that is what the scheme is about. Today is a chance for you to hear from people who've experienced it. I always like to think myself as like a salesperson. I can wax lyrically and talk so passionately about the scheme. However, for you applying, it's so much more powerful to hear people who've been through the process, have gone through the scheme, have the support, naturally now working in industry, done their placements, and you can hear from them, what it's like, why they've done it, what drives them, and some of those things may inform how you apply to us as well. So that's what it's about. What we're going to do now, just to help me and also get you guys thinking a bit, just going to do some, I'm going to drop into the Menti. So if everybody can follow the instructions that Hannah gave. So if you go to menti.com, and I'm just going to share the screen now so you can see what the questions are that I'm going to be posing. This just helps us have a snapshot of who's in the room, and got some of you applying already. That's great. So just a few questions about what are you currently doing. So if you can answer that for me, that would be brilliant. We'll take a couple of minutes for doing that. And this is not a test, it's just, as I said, just a snapshot, and informs us and helps us. And what I found interesting over the last few years is that we've actually had 18-year-olds applying. So it's great that we do have people who haven't decided not to go to university, decided, for whatever reason, not go down the apprenticeship route, but come straight to us. And we've had a couple of people already, successfully, being on the scheme and getting into work without having going to university. And also it's that thing about the different qualifications in terms of academic careers that you may have. We'll talk a bit about that, and some of the others can talk about their experiences and whether their degree actually mattered or not. That's great. So I think there's a few more. If you could fill that in for me, that'd be great. Loads of postgrads over the last couple of years, I think, which reflects what's been happening about the pandemic, and people coming out of university not able to get jobs, not knowing what they exactly want to do. I've had quite a few postgrads onto the scheme, and we've had a PhD student actually going back a few years, but one of our alumni has a PhD in physics and specialises in specialist factual and works as a producer now for BBC Studios, and does a lot in development as well. Okay, I'll move it on, but if people can still see that, that'll be great. Fill those in because there's more there. Thank you. Next question. I think this is just to interrogate a bit and getting you to reflect, if you are at university, what you're studying, because when the others introduce themselves, that you'll discover that we have a very wide range of backgrounds, and it's not just about people assuming that working in the industry you have to have a film or media degree. That isn't the case at all. So this is a word cloud. Hopefully yes, that's great. So you just need to tap in what you're studying. That'd be brilliant. Thank you. So nice mix, and don't have one word dominating. Film is a bit big. Have we got any anthropologists? We usually have some anthropologists joining us as well. That's great. Excellent. Okay, move on. How's our social media, how's our marketing working? Can you just tap in again in the word cloud, how did you find out about us? That'd be helpful. Great. Good to see people being active as well, searching for opportunities. Excellent. And oh yeah, just about geographical spread. Where is your permanent home address? So don't want to know if you're studying at the moment, don't want to know which university town it is, but where are you is home in the UK? And this speaks to, I think this is quite important because it speaks to, and the others will be able to talk about their experience during the pandemic over the last 2 years and working remotely, and how industry actually has supported and I think made the industry more accessible, because you didn't need to move to London. You didn't have to move to Manchester. You could actually, depending on what role you were interested in or area of the industry you were interested in, you could quite happily work from home, wherever that may be. So people want to ask questions, you'll be able to pose those to our alumni as well. That's great. Excellent. Okay, I think that's the last one in this series. I can just double check. Yeah. So I'm just going to stop screen sharing there. That's fine. That's lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. That's really helpful. Without much further ado, I think we'll ask our alumni to introduce themselves. So Toni, let's go with you first. Do you want to just say your name, the year you're on the scheme, where you're based, what you're currently doing, and any recent projects and credits that you've got?
Wow, that's a lot. Hi everyone, my name's Toni. I was on the scheme in 2019, I believe, 2019. And what else did you say?
Oh, actually say what, because obviously you're actually quite special, aren't you? Because
I am also special. Thank you.
You are special,
so are you.
But you're also qualified in a certain way, which is quite. You're the only one in the scheme that is a qualified.
So I'm a qualified pharmacist. Currently working in BBC Studios in the science unit in development. So yeah, I've been in development for about just over a year now. And yeah, that's me.
And do you want to mention do you want to just touch on a couple of the projects that you might have been working on, just to give a flavour of what what you've been doing?
So we have been working on, we work with the US market a lot. So a lot of big Netflix series, nothing that has actually come out yet, but keep your eyes peeled. Netflix series, Channel 4 things. We're constantly in communication with Nat Geo and Disney Plus. Trying to launch the Star network on Disney Plus. If you guys have seen that, produce a few more factual things for them. And also something that I do quite a lot is work on branded content. So brands like Hellman's or like Hyundai will approach BBC Studios with a brief, and we will come up with either anything from a short digital social media pitch to a full-length documentary. We'll come up with.
And do you want to just describe what development is? Because I think when people think about working in TV, they think, oh, I want to be a director, I want to go into research, but we don't actually talk about development until quite late on. So you just want to mention that quickly and then we'll move on.
So development is basically coming up with ideas of shows to make. So for me, I fell into development because I'm a bit more of an ideas person. What we do is that we come up with ideas either because somebody has approached us directly and they've said, we want a new TV show about dating, for the UK market, and then we come up with an idea that way. Or it could be the other way around. We might come up with an idea in-house. Sorry, my doorbell's just going. We might come up with an idea in-house and then try and pitch it to another channel. So BBC Studios are a production company, so we also make the content for other platforms, like I did mention, and then we would pitch it. So one of my strengths is pitching, so we would go talk about the idea, and then if they like it, they'll buy it, and then we'll make it. So that's development.
Thanks a lot, Toni. That's great. Ramla, do you want to introduce yourself, background, what you're doing, etc.? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ramla. I was on the Grierson scheme in 2020, and I am based in Leicester in the Midlands. And my current role title is a researcher, general researcher. And my most recent credit was it was last week Thursday that I actually saw my name on the credits for the first time, and it was for a Channel 5 show called 999 Critical Conditions. So it was like a trauma sort of show based in a resus department in Stoke-on-Trent Hospital. So that was my most recent credit, and I was working as a researcher. Oh, did someone put it in there? Yeah, so watch it. Yeah, it's on every Thursday at 9. But yeah, that was my most recent credit.
Thank you, Ramla. That's great. Sam.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sam. I was part of Grierson last year, 2021. So I'm currently in between jobs at the moment, but before Christmas, I was working at Wise Owl Films, which is a small independent production company based in Leeds. That was initially through my Grierson placement, which I got through the scheme, where I was working as a junior development researcher. And it was absolutely like transformative experience for me. And it was just amazing, to be honest. So yeah, I'm currently based in Lincoln, but I'm planning to move to one of the big media cities, i.e. London, Manchester, Leeds are like the three big media areas in the near future. So yeah.
And Sam, do you want to share what you studied just in terms of background?
Oh, so I did a history degree. I graduated in the summer. So when I was applying for DocLab, I was finishing off my history degree. So it really doesn't matter at all, you know, if you don't have a film background. Like I really had not much experience at all with any technical like shooting at all, really before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, I started doing some like Skillshare courses and video editing and stuff like that. And that was a huge benefit for me getting onto the scheme. So yeah, like having a history degree is very helpful, or was helpful for me to have like some type of skill set to bring, especially through like researching can be a big like area if you are going into development or wanting to work in production, but it's definitely not the be all and end all. So I guess the advice I would give if you're looking to apply is, you know, what is your niche, what's going to help you stand out from the crowd, and yeah, good luck to you all.
Thanks, Sam. Lovely. Rebecca.
Hello, I'm Rebecca. You probably tell from my accent, I'm from Scotland. I'm based just kind of halfway between Glasgow and Edinburgh, easy access to both, which is helpful. I was with Sam on the 2021 cohort. We are the newbies, other than you guys. And I'm currently actually doing my Grierson placement at BBC Studios, working on a program called Scam Interceptors. Before Christmas, I had a 3-month stint as the series runner on Channel 4 program called Luxury for Less. It was kind of a nice, light, fluffy consumer program. It was good fun. And after I've done my placement, I've got a couple of weeks holiday, which I'm excited about, and then I'm going to Inverness. I'm relocating up to Inverness for 3 months to work on a new game show format. So that's exciting. And all of this through connections that Yin has helped me make. So.
Thanks, Rebecca. And do you want just to reveal what your background is academically?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, like Sam, actually, I studied history at uni, and sort of was, like, when I was younger, kind of wanted to be academic in that sort of sense. But kind of accidentally stumbled upon the fact that I really actually liked to tell stories to a much wider audience. So the storytelling aspect is essentially what I love, and that's how I got into history in the first place. But it sort of led me through a kind of windy road to documentaries, and I applied for Grierson while I was writing my dissertation. So it all helps. It is all good. It's all useful.
Thanks, Rebecca. Ramla, I forgot to ask you what your background is, because you've got a master's, haven't you?
Yeah, I did my bachelor's in English language and media and my master's in investigative journalism. So I thought I wanted to go into that dispatches, really fast turnout sort of documentary filmmaking, but that changed.
Yeah, you're looking at people in hospitals instead at the moment.
Yeah,
so.
and I loved it as well. So your likes could change.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Ramla. Last but not least, we have Azeem.
Everyone, I'm Azeem. I was in the 2019 cohort with Toni, and at the time of applying, I was actually also finishing off my history degree, so like Rebecca and Sam, and I think that's a really helpful degree to have, because at least in my experience, like, people often look for people with history degrees when they're doing shows and that kind of thing, history shows, and just generally a lot of factual entertainment, factual documentaries. What was the other questions? I forgot.
Where are you based, and what you've been working on recently, and whom you've been working with,
Yeah. So currently I'm working on Who Do You Think You Are? So a history show, which I started back in December of last year. I'm based in Southend-on-Sea in Essex. It's about an hour outside of London. And before that, I was working on 24 Hours in A&E in Nottingham for a bit. And then before that, I was working on a development project from Arsenal Capadia. So there you go.
You can tell, not now, but you can tell the anecdote about how you got the job. I think that would be quite instructive, but just about how, in terms of the freelance world, how you actually find work. But we'll circle back to that in a second. So just get into the questions, because I'm sure everybody in the room would like to know more about how you got here and how you found the scheme, etc. Toni, if you want to kick off, what made you apply to the scheme first of all? What drew you to us, as it were?
I think I liked the kind of mix between teaching and kind of like getting you in. So usually a lot of this, I had done a scheme before called Iconic Steps at the BFI, which was really practical. And you basically just made a documentary in a week. However, I wasn't really able to learn, because on that course, it was like very much due. But what I loved about the Grierson DocLab was that we had a shoot edit weekend. We had experts coming in to teach us about their field, and we had alumni that we would meet, but also there was the placement aspect. And I could see how, because I was in a phase of transition, I think a lot of people around my age, so at the time I was about 24 or 25, I think, a lot of people applying at the latter end of the age range would be in that stage of just finishing uni or trying to figure out what they would do with their life. So for me, what I liked was the fact that it wasn't just one thing and then you graduate and then you leave and you never see the people again. It looked like it was a year-long structured program that had different check-ins, and that really drew me to it.
That's great. I forgot to mention also, everybody gets a buddy, because now that we've got scale and we've got, these guys as alumni, you get matched with also somebody who's been through the scheme, and somebody you can tap into to ask lots of different questions, because you don't need to necessarily just come to us as the organisers. So you'll also have the peer group that you're with if you're successful, but also you can also tap into those who've been before, and you're matched with a buddy as well. Thanks, Toni. That's great. Ramla, what was the highlight for participating in the scheme for you?
I think that some of the guys heard before we started, I was reminiscing about the time that Louis Theroux came on Zoom with us, and no one expected it, and he popped up and I fangirled and pretty much embarrassed myself, and I took out his book and that was probably one of the many highlights. But also, yeah, just meeting a lot of incredible people who work in the industry, whether that's on screen or sort of off screen. We got the chance to actually pitch to people who were like broadcasters and who worked in sort of like commissioners, and that was really, really exciting because it showed you that there were so many different things that you could do if you wanted to work in production, or that editorial side development, or if you had your own idea and you wanted to see and share it with people. That was really amazing. And also I think one of the best things about it was definitely the community that you get with Grierson. You definitely get, and it sounds corny, but you do get sort of lifelong friends. Like I actually have friends from Grierson that I speak to a lot, and I'm always messaging in the group chat and we're helping each other out. And I think that's really invaluable. I have people from Grierson that I probably speak to more than people that I went to uni with for 4 years. So that's something.
That speaks volumes. Thanks a lot, Ramla. And I think the thing about social media and also the different platforms that you can communicate with, I think over the last few years with the WhatsApp groups, I think what we found is that people, because you get to know each other, if you hear about a job, you will pass it on to somebody else if you're not able to take up that opportunity. So, you know, I think everybody is really tight, and that's the beauty about keeping the group small. So this year there's only 12 places. Last 2 years we had 16, but this year we've gone back down to 12. So it is a competitive process, but I think for anybody who's going to be applying, you know, regardless of whether you're going to be successful or not, to give the time, to spend the time and do that deep thinking about why you want to be part of this world, why you want to go to the industry. It's invaluable because it basically will make you think in a way that you might not have before. And if you're not successful in this scheme, it's still not going to be wasted, because there's lots of other different types of schemes out there, but also prepares you for when you're going to be meeting people, whether it's via Zoom or whether it's going to be in person when you're networking. You already rehearsed what those conversations are going to be and what drives you to say, I want to work in documentaries or factual. So it's really important. Thanks, Ramla. Sam, do you want to talk a little bit about your work placement then? So just a few words, just saying where it was and you know, how was it? You know, was it in person, was it remote, etc.? Because you're geographically you were spread out, weren't you?
Yeah. So as I've briefly mentioned before earlier, my placement was at Wise Owl Films, which is based in Leeds. So as I was doing my placement, I was still based in Lincoln. So the placement was like blended between working from home and working in office. That still wasn't particularly unusual, because at Wise Owl, their like working arrangement was like working from home and being in office anyway. So like it was like a perfectly like great system. So basically during my time there, a couple of the things that I was doing was working on potential up and coming projects that Wise Owl were developing. So for example, Wise Owl have a documentary series called When X Came to Britain. So they've done one, they've done two so far, when Bob Marley came to Britain and when Nirvana came to Britain. So as like a huge music fan, like it was amazing to work on some of the up and coming projects in that series, which was like great. And then also from working with the development team, I also got to propose my own like factual entertainment ideas, which was amazing, and like partaking in brainstorms, just like being part of like having that experience was great. And I think going into development now is something that I've really wanted to do, which is brilliant because it's given me you know, a platform to like know what I want to do with my career now. So yeah, it was amazing. I couldn't speak highly enough of the whole experience with Grierson, setting it up and working at Wise Owl as well. I'm still in regular contact with the creative director and the head of development at Wise Owl. I've got a few meeting later on this week, because Mark, who's the creative director, he's also my mentor through Grierson too, which you will get if you get on the scheme. So yeah, it was a brilliant experience, and you'll all get to do it if you get on the scheme. So yeah.
Thanks, Sam. Just to say that if you're interested in hearing from Mark Robinson and about Wise Owl, we are doing another webinar, but this time being hosted by talented people, and more details to follow. So if you look at that on social media, That's going to be next week. So you'll be hearing from some different people from a different angle about the scheme. So there's that. Thanks, Sam. Rebecca, now cutting to the chase, as it were, with these guys who are in the call here today, what tips would you give them, in their approach, thinking about applying for the scheme?
So when you said that, I've spent the last hour thinking about that question, yeah. Since you sent it over to me, I've been like, right. I think the first thing, the main thing for me really was not sort of doubting yourself, really, not getting overly involved in the whole, it is because it is very competitive, it is. But don't sort of sell yourself short, and kind of think deeply about why it is that you want to apply for this and what it is that makes you stand out. And maybe what helped me was I sort of sat and was like, right, why this scheme? Why do I want to be in documentary? And have a good look, all the sort of standard things, have a good look at the application process, understand what they're asking you. But in the end, I think the thing that really sort of helped me and will make your application shine is selling you. So don't tell them what you want, what you think they want to hear. Think about what makes you right for this, or what makes you unique, or what gives you a voice that can be used, or that's different in some way, and really, really play to your advantages. Like if you don't have an awful lot of technical experience, which I didn't at the time, don't get overly hung up on that. Talk about why you love it and why you want to learn more. Because I sort of spent a lot of time going, to be honest, even up until the moment I got the place, in my head I was going, I'll never get in. I won't. Even like the interview went really well, and actually Hannah, the lovely Hannah that you met just at the start, she interviewed me, and that was great as well. The other thing I wanted to say about the interviews is if you get past the initial application stage and go into the interviews, don't overthink it, don't panic. It's very sort of relaxed, very kind of conversational, and again, like, let your personality shine through. Don't because a lot of the time the instinct is to go, what do they want to hear? Don't do that. Just believe in yourself and sort of let your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own personality shine through it, and that is the best advice I can give you.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Rebecca. That was very kind of you to say. Azeem, because you've been on the scheme, it was a few years now since you've been on the scheme. Do you want to just talk about after you've done the placement, after been to the awards, what the support is and what you went on to do afterwards?
Yeah, so I think, as you mentioned, I got a placement at a company called Utopia, which I actually shared with Toni. Toni did 2 weeks, I did 2 weeks. Normally they only do one person for 4 weeks. So I went to Utopia in London and spent 2 weeks in the development team there, which is very insightful. And I got to, they let me like go to the edit for one show that they were working on, and then help do a sizzle reel for a trailer for a project that they were thinking about making and pitching. So it was quite all encompassing. Within just 2 weeks, you kind of got a good sense of what development was like.
Do you want to just say what a sizzle reel is? Just unpack that a bit.
Yeah, so when they're going to the BBC or whoever it is to pitch an idea for a documentary or whatever it is, they'll take they'll make a short trailer basically to kind of give a sense of the style and kind of some of the content of what the show would be. So in this case, it was like a Tudor time period documentary. So then we were just taking clips from films from the Tudor period or that, and just basically using it, finding music, using some of the research that the development team had done on it, and basically trying to give a sense of what the show is so they can see it and they can basically buy into it from that, as opposed to just reading pages and pages of research. And then afterwards the pandemic hit, so I didn't really do much for a bit, and then I got a job on a film called Life in a Day 2022, which was directed by Kevin MacDonald, who has made a bunch of documentaries and I think won an Oscar and stuff like that. And it was basically just going through the material that people were sending in, because it was through YouTube, and and basically deciding what's good and what's bad, what they should use in the doc, and kind of fighting for certain footage. And then after that, I saw a tweet from Asif Kapadia, who I follow on Twitter anyway, and he said that he was looking for people to work on a new project he had in mind about the state of the world. And like many people, I just replied to the tweet. A couple of days later, I get a message in my DMs from him with an email. I send in my CV and like a short paragraph, and saying just, I'd love to work on something with you. And then a few weeks later, I got an email for an interview and etc. And then eventually I got hired for the job. So that can be kind of one of the weird ways where you get jobs. You know, it's not like in a lot of other industries where it's quite a strict process, and you go through the same portal and it's like the same way of applying for everyone. It's kind of a bit strange, but once you're used to that, it's very easy to kind of navigate that, which I think the DocLab will help you do. And then since then, it's kind of, you get recommendations, and you go on, there's a talent manager website where you basically put your CV up and stuff like that. And that's how I've got jobs on 24 Hours in A&E, which was very fun. And then more recently now on the job I'm currently doing, which is Who Do You Think You Are?
Sorry, I've got a new dog, and the dog is just been barking at me. So there you go. Thanks, Azeem. I think because we've already been talking for about 40 minutes, it'd be good to take questions from people. So I won't go through the questions that I assigned to you guys, but audience, people here today who are thinking of applying, do we have somebody who wants to ask us a question? And for this, if you want to unmute yourself, you can just say who you are and ask a question. If you want to direct it to specifically to the alumni. Anybody?
Hi there.
Hi there. Who's that? Hello, Lauren.
Lauren Dawkins. Hi.
Hi. What's your question? Who would you like to? This sounds like a game show now. Is there anybody you want to address the question to, or is it just to the group as a whole?
Yes, to the group as a whole. When asked about what factual idea you wanted to make within the application, so if you had the opportunity to make a factual project, what would it be? What were your answers to that, if anyone wants to share?
Go, Rebecca. Yeah,
I'm happy to share. Yeah, I sort of my answer to that question sort of came out of a frustrated dissertation topic. Really, I was initially supposed to do my dissertation in film form, but the pandemic put paid to that. So my pitch was for a series, sort of the kind of melding history and music, which were my two kind of main hobbies. About the sort of cultural importance of folk music in Scotland and Ireland, and talking about the similarities and how they've developed over time, and essentially going around to different kind of communities in the islands that are still Gaelic speaking places, and going over to Ireland and following folk musicians, and basically just sort of a case study of that kind of community, which I'm sort of a part of myself as well. So I just sort of thought that would be an interesting thing, because it's not something you see an awful lot on telly, and I was kind of trying to merge my two interests there. So
yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's a really interesting idea.
No problem. It's sort of like I was saying, like, just take what your interests are and use them. Use something that you're passionate about, because it'll help the passion come across if it's something you already kind of know about.
Definitely.
Can we take Ramla and then Toni for your responses?
Yeah, sure. I actually just put mine up because I thought I might have it on my laptop, so I actually have it. And mine was based, like Rebecca said, it was an idea I had for uni, and it was something I wanted to do and film, but COVID happened, I think, the month before I was supposed to fly out, and I was supposed to. The story was basically a current affairs documentary style thing based on the 30-year anniversary of the civil war in Somalia, where I'm from. So I was going to go to Somalia to see family anyway, and I thought I could film something. And yeah, it was basically about how people who maybe are first, second generation Somalis who are either raised here or born here that actually choose to move back to Somalia when there's active like violence happening and that it's not still safe. But yeah, just to sort of see, it wasn't a very like fully formed idea. It was just an idea that I really wanted to do, and I thought it would be possible. Looking back now, it's like really dangerous. I think somewhere I put in AK-47s and suicide vests. I don't know what was that, but yeah, it was a very ambitious project to say the least, but it was something that definitely was something I knew a lot about, and a lot of history. It had relevance to it, being the 30-year anniversary, and also it was my background. I thought if I know more than anyone like about this issue, so I'm going to sort of talk about it. But yeah, that's what my idea was. Don't know how.
Oh, fantastic, thank you.
And for me, my idea was about post-uni depression, so I called it PUD. LOL. But for me, I've always been someone to kind of like write down ideas for docs or watch a documentary and kind of think about how I would do my version. So what Rebecca said and what Ramla said is really important when you're selecting what idea you would say. It needs to be something maybe like something you have access to, or something that is a part of your everyday life, but most people wouldn't know about. For me, coming out of uni, as I said, I did pharmacy, so it's quite a long course. So I had a few people that had left uni and gone back home, and I would often speak to them about life after leaving the bubble of campus, and they were like, it's hard. So I think I just wanted to spotlight that issue. It is something that I'm quite passionate about, like young people, transitions, identity. So I think like, although my idea as well, like Ramla's, was not fully formed, the subject area was something I was really passionate about and I could kind of explain and articulate. And I also felt like they wouldn't know, or maybe the people who were interviewing me wouldn't be that aware of how much young people were struggling in that kind of weird transition period. So that was why I chose it.
Thank you, that's a fantastic idea. These have all really inspired me to get thinking.
Thank you. Azeem, do you remember what you pitched at all?
Vaguely, yeah. Mine was like a combination of like social history and food. So the idea was that people like, I think I was gonna get a comedian or something, of South Asian background, basically go to his parents' house and get have dinner with his parents and discuss their family history, really. And it was inspired by, I remember it was inspired by Italian American, which is a Martin Scorsese documentary, which you can find on YouTube. It's only about 45 minutes, which I'd recommend. But yeah, that was kind of the idea. And the idea was that it could be a format, so you could change the comedian or the person presenting it, and it would be a different set of parents every single time. Yeah.
Thank you. That definitely sounds like an interesting idea as well.
Thanks, Lauren. Great question. Got a question here from Holly, who said their Wi-Fi is really bad, and she has a question about experience on set. Now, I think there's something about language. We don't really talk about set, so going onto a set would suggest that you're working on a drama or piece of fiction, or scripted program making. What these guys were doing when you're working in factory, you're going on a production. So I know definitely that Azeem has been on 24 Hours in A&E, because I went to visit you in Nottingham. So you're on the production. Ramla, did you go up to Stoke-on-Trent as well?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So Holly, we don't talk about going on set. So unless you're doing a docudrama, when you're doing a recreation, then you would. But generally, you're going on to the production, where once you've done the development, you've done the research, they're going off to talk to the contributors, filming what they're doing. That's that element that you're referring to, in effect. So Azeem, do you want to just talk about what it's like what was it like working on 24 hours in A&E. I know it wasn't very pleasant because you were stuck in a hotel a lot of the time, and it was shift work, but to others it might sound very glamorous. So do you want to just touch upon that to give them a flavour of what on that, which is a rigged show, what to expect?
Yeah, so a rigged show, 24 hours in A&E is a rigged show. So that means that you're not really dealing with like actual cameras that you move about. What they do before you start production, before they start filming, is that they essentially screw a bunch of like very advanced CCTV cameras all around the hospital, all around the areas that you're going to film in, and then it's controlled in a gallery just outside in like, Corso cabins. So the way the production was run, you had researchers in the actual hospital, and then you had researchers in the gallery. I was one of the researchers in the gallery, and because it's 24 hours in A&E, you have people working around the clock for 7 weeks. So what happened was we'd work in 3 8-hour shifts and just alternate. So one week I'd do the 3 to 11 p.m. shift. Another week I'd do the night shift, so 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then another week I'd do 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And you basically just alternate, and it's very very difficult at times, but you're working with great teams, so you don't really mind a lot of it. And yeah, so in a gallery, you're basically watching footage and making notes on it all the stuff that you're recording, and then you're obviously keeping an eye on stories and characters and trying to kind of get as much as you can. You speak to doctors and try and understand what's going on, what the procedures are like, that kind of thing. So just even on that production, there are so many different roles that you could inhabit, and so many skills that you could learn. So that's what being a gallery researcher is like, but I'm sure other guys have other experiences of, being on productions.
Yeah, Rebecca, when you did the Yorkshire auction house, did you go on set? Did you go on set? Did you go on production? Did you go on location?
Not for the Yorkshire auction house, but when I was doing Luxury for Less, I was on location for almost all of that, which was really good fun. Actually, it was sort of like there are times where it actually was quite glamorous, just when you're standing there sort of in this kind of surreal out of body moment, going, "This is mad." But yeah, like Azeem was saying, a lot of it is sort of kind of, there's a lot of like travel lodges and Premier Inns and slightly questionable McDonald's breakfasts. But like actually when you're doing the set, we kind of had a different thing going. It was like a 3-man team. There was me, a researcher, and a shooting PD on each...
PD, do you want to say what a shooting
PD
sorry, is for? That's fine.
Producer director. So they produce, direct, and they are the cameraman essentially as well. Occasionally we had a sound guy, but not very often. So that was really sort of high energy, like long days. But for me it was brilliant because I was the runner, but because it was such small teams, I got to do a little bit of everything. Like I got to man third camera half the time, just for the wide shots, and occasionally if there was like a 2-person interview, so got to do a bit of that. I did like all the set dressing for the Christmas episodes. That was really fun. So I spent like 2 weeks just putting a Christmas tree up and down, which was good. I enjoyed it. It was fun. Yeah, so it's a lot of stuff that you maybe don't necessarily think about until you're there, and it's all these tiny little jobs that need done, like organising taxis for contributors, and when they come in, I ended up a lot of the time sitting with the presenter or the contribs kind of chatting while the director worked through the scripts. So a lot of it is, if you're chatty like me, don't know if you can tell, that helps a lot, even just sort of getting to talk to all these different people, like experts in mad areas that you would never even think. That's one of my favorite bits, was just sort of meeting all these different people. So yeah, I think it's each production is so different that there isn't necessarily an encompassing experience, but there's advantages to that because it's never a dull moment.
I think one of the things I remember people saying, working in the industry and about what they love about working in factual is that every single time you go to a different program, you become an expert in that. So, you know, you got, you know, like Azeem and Ramla, they know a lot about medicine now, and, you know, especially Ramla, looking at quite a lot of, you know, gruesome operations and stuff, and Azeem in lots of, you know, people going to A&E. So, you know, that's the thing, you become experts in different types of things and doing that deep dive. But as we're approaching the hour, I think what I'd like to do is just ask for one more question. Has anybody got a question that they would like to pose?
Hiya.
Hi, Isabel. Yes, what was your question?
Shall I go? Yeah.
Yeah, go. Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. Sorry. No, I was just wondering, like, in terms of, hi, I'm Isabel. In terms of like formatting the questions for the application, so it's so for example, the one that's like the pitch, it's only 150 words, isn't it? Which is like, I don't know. Sorry, I'm having a little moment. Give me a second. Yeah, I was just like, in terms of formatting the pitch and things like that and the questions, does anyone have any advice on sort of how to do that, really?
Do you mean like how to keep it sort of succinct and stuff?
Yeah, because if you can't tell, I have a bit of a tendency to ramble on. So yeah, I was just wondering how to keep it sort of tight and condense all your ideas into sort of one thing.
Yeah, I think that's part of the skill, and that's why we kept it to the 150 words, because when you're working in the industry, time is, you know, that, you know, you're pitching, you're going to be talking and have to distill your idea into a very short period of time. So you might as well get from the get-go working with us, understand that as a skill that you need to develop. But I suppose Sam and Rebecca, given, you know, well, Sam, you missed out on a few minutes of the call so far. Do you remember your approach to your idea, and, you know, any tips that you can give Isabel about how you approached it?
Yeah, sure. So I think from what I remember, how I approached it, obviously, like, kind of with any like application like that, you kind of like plan it out, get a rough idea of kind of what you're thinking about, and then I guess, yeah, it's like you said, because it's only 150 words, I guess you want to be quite precise with what you you know, what you want to be saying, and to be fair, like, doing an application, like for example, having like a short word count will keep you in really good stead for like later on in your career if you're successful, because when you're doing like CVs or cover letters, they will also need to be like super concise, and you'll need to get your point across within like a short, you know, without in as few words as possible. So yeah, all I would say is just like, obviously plan what you're going to say out, and then obviously proofread it, like if you have like another family member or like a housemate or whatever to read it over for you. Maybe like, I don't know, what I normally do is like maybe like sleep on, like complete it and then come back to it with like a fresh pair of eyes. So yeah, just like little tips like that really. And yeah, just you kind of make sure you get your personality across and like use your creativity.
Thanks,
And if
Sam.
I could just
I was just going to say, Toni.
okay?
Yeah, what given you're pitching a lot and having to
so in
things.
development, they often are, you know, they'll ask you to kind of write a top line for your idea, or, you know, write a few top line ideas, and it's really important to get, you know, to know how to get your whole documentary idea in literally 1 or 2 lines, and be quite succinct. But I think what I learned is trying not to edit as I'm thinking or as I'm going along, because that can actually, for me at least, it can lead me to procrastinate and it can be quite overwhelming. So what I usually do is get all of the information out on paper first, and if that ends up being a whole page, you know, it's a whole page, and then you take out the elements, the key elements. For example, if it is your pitch, you'll take out the key elements of the film, you know, who it's about, you know, where it's set, all those things, and you make sure that those are all in your one line. But I think on a practical note, you know, literally copying and pasting the questions into a Word document, making sure that you're giving yourself plenty of time to answer the questions, and not rushing them, going back to it a few weeks later, sending it out to different people, you know, that you trust, and getting their opinion on the questions and editing it that way is really helpful. For me, I did a few attempts on the application, and I was really happy with my final attempt, but it did take me a few weeks, and it wasn't something that I just really quickly wrote short, succinct answers to. Not at all. It's a skill, and it's still a skill that I'm trying to cultivate even now.
Thanks, Toni. That's great. I had a question. A couple of people asking about DOP, cinematography, basically. That's a craft skill, and we don't really do craft skills. We don't really do camera. More about editorial in terms of the approach and how we support people. If you are interested in craft, I suggest that you look on the Screen Skills website, and the career map that Hannah mentions and in the chat, there are two. There's one that's for editorial and production management, and then there's another careers map which is about craft and technical skills. And I suggest you have a look at that and approach Screen Skills. If you haven't already, check them out. They have lots of resources, they have lots of good information, they have lots of free courses, etc. A different approach to us, but they also support new entrants and people trying to get into the industry. So definitely need to check them out if you haven't already. As Hannah says, if you have any more questions, and you know, unfortunately the hour has whizzed by, please do get in touch. We're here to help, and we want people to apply, so don't hesitate to drop us an email. I think what I'd like to do is ask the alumni, and as we wrap up in the last few minutes, just to sum up, I suppose, in a couple of words, you know, what it's meant to be on the scheme, and any last thought for the people who are here today about applying, what we would say to them. So let's start with Azeem first.
So being on the DocLab has been kind of essential for me to get work in the TV industry, really, because I wouldn't have known how to do it beforehand. So you kind of get an understanding of how this TV industry works, and then from there you can kind of find your unique selling point and email people about, you know, things that you can do and things that you want to work on. You know, you also meet wonderful people. Obviously, I'm still in touch with Yen and the whole kind of Grierson team, but then also the people in my cohort, we're still in touch and in regular contact, and good friends. So there's that as well. And then everything else just kind of accumulates over time. It snowballs. You know, something small becomes much bigger and much more meaningful as you go on, I think. So yeah.
Thanks, Azeem. Ramla?
Yeah, like Azeem says, I think it's definitely something that I don't think I'd be here without, career-wise. I think it's just done an amazing thing for my career. Yeah, I think any last minute advice would probably be, don't overthink it. Don't think that you aren't good enough to do it, or if you live in the middle of nowhere, that's something, or you don't live in like a media city, that is something that should put you off. I think all the things that you probably think aren't beneficial probably are the things that set you out, are your unique selling points, and just good luck. I'm sure you'll all do well.
Thanks, Ramla. That's great. Sam?
Yeah, so I would say like DocLab has been like completely transformational for me. Like this time last year, I didn't really have kind of a clue what I wanted to do at all. Like I've always been like incredibly interested in documentaries, but again, I never really had an idea about how, you know, I would get into the industry. So like it's like hugely worthwhile, and even if you aren't successful this year, like I know other people in my cohort this year who applied on multiple occasions and got in on, you know, the second or third time. So, you know, definitely don't give up. Like all I would say is, you know, doing your application, make sure like, you know, your own personality shines through, like what is your niche, what's going to make you stand out, whether that's your degree or what you do, you know, what's your hobby, like do you have like a YouTube channel, like do you have like what's your like social media, like you just got to think of like a bit outside the box, like what's going to make you one of the 12 to you know, be part of this, because it's like it's such an amazing experience, honestly. Like some of the things that I've been able to do over the past 12 months I never thought I would have been able to do. So yeah, good luck to you all.
Thanks, Sam, that's lovely. Rebecca, if you want to summarize in a few words.
Yeah, it's kind of echoing what the other guys said, like completely life-changing. I would not have got this far in a year, even remotely, without it, because I just wouldn't even have the resources to know how to pursue a career in telly without it. And now I'm sort of, you know, getting relatively steady work. And like Sam said, done things that I would not have even imagined being able to do. So, and sort of like Azeem said, the people that you meet as well sort of inspire you to keep going as well. Like there's a sort of camaraderie when you're all in a group together and you're at a sort of early stage of your career, which can be quite scary. To have other people who you sort of have got to know over this time in the same position, it really sort of helps. You sort of boost each other up, really. So really sort of inspiring and rewarding as well. Final bit of advice, just what I said earlier, just do it, take that chance, just believe in yourself, you can do it.
Thanks a lot, Rebecca. And Toni, and I'm sure you're going to be echoing what the other said. Is there anything else that you want to add in your final thoughts?
Sorry. I would say everyone has said everything, to be honest. What Azeem said about things snowballing is really true. I mean, meeting people on my placement, or some things that I did a few years ago, now I'm meeting them, or I walk into BBC studios and there's like 4 people from Grierson, you know, that are working there or have worked there. But I would just say it's really cultivated for me boldness. I think kind of almost having an audacity, like what Azeem said, you know, somebody tweeted something and he responded. And I think going through DocLab kind of helps you to understand that the industry doesn't just happen to you. You really do have to push and you have to be quite persistent. And yes, you can get that resilience kind of outside of the scheme, but I think inside the scheme, you see both sides of it. You see beforehand and you meet people who have pushed and who have had really good successes. So yeah, just boldness, I would say, and kind of an audacity to continue. But yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Toni. Yeah, I would say that, yeah, don't self-censor yourself, because there's the worst that could happen is that you're not successful this year. And, you know, depending on your age, obviously, our cap is 25. So, you know, persevere, come back, you know, use these opportunities to meet with other people. We've got another session with a different group next week. Come and hear it from a different angle as well. But thank you very much for taking up, for, you know, joining us this evening. Thank you very much to our alumni, our wonderful alumni. Thank you very much. A round of applause. Yeah, please do get in touch if you have any other questions. Jane, who's our managing director. Jane, do you want to say a couple of words at all? And then we'll finish.
Well, just so lovely to see you all and to see such a good turnout for this. So, and as Yen said, just get in touch with us. Like, you know, we're a tiny team, but we respond very quickly, which is, you know, so, and lovely to see you alumni and everybody else that's joined. Bye.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a good evening, and hope to receive your applications by the 11th of February. Thanks a lot. Bye.